Great. So another first impressions. Today we're talking with Burt about their technology. Carl, I'm excited to talk to you. He's the president and CTO of Burt, and this is something where I'll just say is one of the ideas behind first impressions was to get and see products. I said earlier to Carl that like between my relationship with companies like Advance and CBS and others and people that you've worked with, I've known of the product. I've looked over their shoulders at it, but I haven't actually gotten to see it as much as I would like to. And so I'd love to hear from you a little bit about Burt, help set the stage. And I think people here kind of want to see some technology and talk about what you're up to and where you're going with this.
Absolutely. And this is a true honor to be part of the program. Very happy to be here and sort of unveil a bit of what we've been doing for all these years. Just starting off, Burt Intelligence, the company I'm responsible for, is ad and revenue intelligence platform. It's been solely focused on the media industry for a lot of years. Many people have heard about us, known that we have been in the bigger enterprise spectrum, and that's where we started. So we took the unconventional path, I guess, of solving the way hardest problems, and then once we've gotten to that point, start to open up and go more down market. So it's a lot of experience that's built into the platform, a lot of trials, feedback, realizing that, that wasn't just possible for us to decide. We got to have all these ways of configuring it, because at the end of the day, every use case has its unique properties. And I guess one of the philosophies we applied is to be able to do those configurations at scale and not enforce a square on everyone, but rather a platform where we can work together in a partnership and tailor the details so we solve the real problems.
I like that approach. I think, with my experience, with your experience, each publisher has its unique setup, its unique ideas. Obviously, some certain pieces of it are common, right, to build around or whatever. But to sit there and come out and say, "Hey, we've solved this for all publishers," isn't going to resonate. I think everyone that I talk to knows that they have their particular, that one thing they do, at least one thing that they do that's different. So being flexible and built that way makes sense.
Anyone saying they have a standard Salesforce connector is lying, because there isn't one. Every single Salesforce instance looks differently.
Interesting. So talk about, I think that there's, to your point, like the overall approach here, you're obviously, there's some other people in the space. Yeah, I'll say, I'm going to name names, right? So there's the Stacks, there's the adjusters or whatever that do some of this pulling together, but you're doing something different. And I'd love you to kind of expand on that, just that strategy.
Yeah, sure. I mean, all the previously named companies are terrific solutions. We know them well, but I would say all of us, and looking at the industry, let's go back 5-7 years, it was a real problem to be able to get all your data in one place. And it was a lot of effort put into doing that, us included. And I would say it's now a solved problem in the industry. You have your own IT department with a BigQuery cluster, or maybe you run Stack or Adjuster or Domo. And then you get to the realization that, okay, now what? Where do we go from here? And what we are putting all our efforts on is to help you with that phase. It's almost a paradigm shift in the industry where it obviously didn't solve everything. So it's much more about, okay, what questions should I ask the data? Could I work with a tool that asks them for me and tells me when I need to look into something? To take it all the way to more prescriptive analysis of not only telling you this happened, it could be because of this, and here is what you should do. And that is really where we will be investing heavily and are right now and for the next couple of years. And I think that's where you will see the entire industry shift in, because if you have all the data, it does require a lot of skill to know what to do with it. That's why
Yeah.
we all talked about data scientists 3-4 years ago. That was the hottest thing, and there simply aren't enough of them. And you also got to know media. You can't just know math.
I've actually been in a conversation where someone said that they were so excited that they now had a data scientist or a data scientist team. And the comment, it is just so funny to hear, right? Like the data scientists were a little bit concerned about the quality of the data that they were working with, right? And if you think about it, you know, if you're a data scientist and you've worked in another field, and then you come to media and you go, right, okay, that's an impression. Well, is it an impression? Is it
Yeah.
going to count as an impression? Can I bill off that impression? And suddenly they get like, wait, what? Like the basic building blocks don't even work. Going back to something you said that I just, not that I think that anyone sat there and said, oh, we get all the data into one place and you're done. But I will sit there and say that there was a lot of work people put into to get all the data into one place, and people are still working on that. But that isn't the end goal, right?
No.
It is the data, but then it's how do you do it? And I think the area that I've always wanted a solution around is where the technology was doing more of the work than I was to get to those insights, right? So your point about media, and I know what I kind of want, but I don't necessarily know how to navigate data the same way.
Yeah.
So I think that I think you're hitting on a couple of things that to me are critical for people to kind of think about. So that's pretty cool.
And there's also there's so much complexity involved that you just simply don't need to know about. We've taken the approach of hiding that for you, except for the pieces that you really need to be able to go in and modify. Working with your data, be able to add new normalization, etc., is critical for the ongoing work. But everything else, we just take care of it for you. And we do have a strong guiding principle of just let's make sure it just works.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of features that you maybe find in Tableau, because it's 1,000 engineers working on a dashboard, that you will not find in our system. We'll just set it up for you, and then it works, and you can focus your time on what matters. And I think another important aspect of sort of the change in what work is going to look like is machines will not replace humans when it comes to making decisions. That requires human creativity, it requires communication. But there are a lot of pieces leading up to that where machines are perfectly suitable, and that's the role we focus on solving for, to just allocate more time to the skilled operators of making decisions and then telling someone about it.
If I understand correctly, and again, I want to see things, so but I will lead with this, which is I heard this idea, or you mentioned before, this idea of getting like an email, starting your day with an email. I kind of like that idea of there it is in those insights. So can you start to give us some sense of what someone is working, so let's take this, let's start here, right? Which is whether you already have a solution that's already brought your data together, we mentioned a number of them, or you're on that journey, you work with them on top of that, or to connect and pull all that together, right? So no matter your kind of maturity with your data, you're able to kind of work with to help with that. And then what you're saying is that instead of just spitting out lots of numbers, like that would be impressive at this point, just is more getting right just to just sharing the insights. So I'm kind of curious as to what you mean by that, and I'll let you kind of to
Yeah,
show.
and I think that's going to be a good segue to just starting to look at some things. To your point, for some of our bigger clients, we collect hundreds of millions of data points each day from all these different systems. And the easy thing is to give you access to all that. The hard thing is to give you access to the 5 or 10 things you really need to focus on today. And so one of the interfaces that many people will be greeted by is simply an email in your inbox in the morning saying, okay, hey, here's what happened. And oh, just, okay. Yeah, my Zoom says it needs to quit in order to be able to share a screen.
Interesting. Okay.
Let's take a 15-second bio break and I'll be right back.
Okay. All right. We'll all right. Well, we'll edit this. This has happened before. So what we can do is this is where I'm actually supposed to have a bunch of so Carl, I'm supposed to have a bunch of jokes ready to go there and so forth. But if you're ready to share, we can do that, and I'll just chop this particular piece out.
Yeah. Okay. Do you see your email?
I see yes. I see my
All
daily.
right.
I didn't even know I'd be getting this. Fantastic.
Yeah, this is a walk down memory lane back to where it all started. Sitting where it happens, responsible for delivering a bunch of campaigns, maybe still a little bit upset about all the IOs you received on Friday evening. And what this is we have scanned through the millions of data points collected with a AI algorithm to extract what are the things you need to focus on. So these emails are all personalized. You will not be notified about anything that is not on your table. And there are, of course, a lot of things with the tiny descripts. It's all filtered for sort of what will make an impact if you allocate some of your day in fixing this.
Carl, can you zoom in just a little closer? Just I think so people can.
Yes, that's it.
There we go. Perfect.
So this is the morning email. In this particular case, there were 3 of your campaigns where there's been some issues that you need to look at. The first one is a campaign where significant discrepancy. What we do here, and we always try to go the extra mile in order to quantify things in actual money and not just impressions or clicks.
I like that.
This really means that this is what you're risking by not taking this seriously. And as you can see, it's easily quite big numbers happening. So in this case here, it's a Volvo campaign with a third-party vendor discrepancy. You can get some basic metrics, but also who else is involved in this campaign in case you need to escalate things. We provide you here with links into all the systems where you can do things into DFP or into operative, but also then a way to be able to look at the campaign in detail. So what you will see here is we have selected a couple of breakdowns and visualizations that are relevant to this particular issue. So different issues will have different visualizations, and sometimes you can actually almost see the cause here. It is a high level view. Well, you can see here it's been going on for a while. It's not something that just happened yesterday. You can see breakdowns. This is a particular creative that's causing it, or device types, what it's been looking at over time. And from this point on, you probably want to go into either a DFP operative if you sort of have a hunch that maybe you need to add a negative targeting, or you can also choose to go into the further drill down, which is a view where you get all the data. So this view here would only cater to a few people in an organization, not shy of looking at a lot of data. But here you have it all placed up next to each other. It's all heat map driven because it wants you to identify the outliers. So if you want to go even further down, look at, is it a particular ad unit maybe that's causing it, then this is where you go. And it all sort of, the end goal is always to either go into the source system and fix something, or to forward an email or communicate with one of your colleagues, call a meeting and decide on what to do, because sometimes it's not entirely in your control.
Got it. A couple of questions off that. So I want to take a step back. So I like the email, right? And again, I'm thinking of it not only, again, roles are different, right? But if my traffickers are getting that message, they know where to start their day. I'm seeing in here a severity kind of scoring, 902 out of 1,000. How is that figured out? And is that something where I'm, as a publisher, setting what that severity might look like, or how is that determined?
Yeah, it's a perfect example of something we sort of set and forget together. So we'll have a discussion as to what are your overall strategic KPIs, and based on that, set up these weightings. And it's really used as a filter, because you as a trafficker might want to have a very low threshold because you want to be aware of everything going on. Usually as a campaign starts ramping, you can get leading indicators that something is not set up properly and fix it before it even becomes a problem. Whereas a manager will probably never want to be notified unless there is a really big problem that's been going on, racking up a lot of money in opportunity cost. So it's a weighted score. If you have no strong opinion, we'll just decide it for you. And if you do, then we'll discuss it together.
Carl, is there a way to get good news into my in my email box, my inbox? In other words,
absolutely. So we have two concepts, or it's really issues, which is what we're looking at here, and opportunities, where and they can both be quantified by money. And the opportunity for one publisher might not necessarily be an opportunity for another one. So this is a route that we do go down as we add on more cases to this system that should be distributed to people. And the same thing, everyone is not interested in everything.
Right. I love, that's a again, I'm sitting here just thinking about it in terms of my communication to my boss is always about the issues. But if I'm sitting there going like, we found more inventory, found something that again is opportunity or whatever, those are the things that are really great to be able to communicate. And again, start the day with. One thought I just off of this, and a question that kind of came up, this is Google Ad Manager. Do you work with other ad servers? And then the other question off of that gets into perhaps an idea of the breadth of types of data sources that you have worked with in the past or work with.
Yeah, so we, as most other vendors out there, I would say we cover every major system out there. That would be roughly 100 different systems. I think where we distinguish ourselves is that we also have the capabilities to go knee deep into the more complex, unique systems. I mentioned Salesforce, operative order management systems, but also everyone tends to still have that old legacy Oracle database with a very important data point that they need to mesh into the digital systems. So we'll set up those flows and tie it all together. And in the same way, if you already made the investments in getting all your SSP data into a BigQuery, we'll just base it off that system or any of the other data aggregation partners out there. So for us, it's all about just helping you and us together in a partnership get to value. And if that is us building out a lot of integrations or basing it off something else, whatever gets us there in the fastest way with the highest trust possible, we'll take that route.
And that's actually one of the things that I think I've heard you talk about and being pretty proud about is your speed of getting a publisher kind of up and going. Since you've mapped out much of this stuff, you're doing the heavy lifting, right? And
yeah.
And then just kind of connecting it up. And then your conversations with the publisher are more about what are the KPIs and what is it, how you judge that versus the data piece of it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I always talk a lot with my team about the next morning experience. If you provide us access to your systems, I want you to receive an email like this or schedule a report or an insight the next morning. Having said that, a full implementation is never done in a day. There will always be credentials missing to a particular system or someone not setting up the export, but there got to be something there the next day, and that's a guiding post we're following and investing a lot in to make sure we provide some value immediately and then iteratively together work on increasing that, expanding that to both more systems, more departments, more roles over time. And we always look at our customer relationships as partnerships rather than us selling you a product and sending you a help center link and then never hear from us again. And I think that comes with a legacy of having done this in the enterprise space and having built the company and the DNA of the company in that setting rather than HubSpot type of product that's just sold and then
there you go.
So that's our philosophy behind it.
Got it. And I want to make sure a particular point wasn't missed that I think would be key. So you talked about again like that legacy Oracle system, that one data point. And again, I think we all know exactly. It's that almost everyone seems to have that. But this is also not just about programmatic and not also just about direct. It's about both, and not even distinct. I'm sure if I need it that way, but you also are looking at more of a holistic picture across what I'm doing there. Can you talk to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's another couple of fundamental architectural decisions we made early on in that programmatic, display, video, social, it's all different streams of the same advertising data set. So there's really nothing in our platform which is siloed and only programmatic or only direct. When you look at an advertiser, it will be a mapped advertiser across all your different sources. And it could even go outside of digital as well. It's, and I think we've also gotten to that point as an industry now where for a number of years, it was fine to have one team looking at only programmatic and one team looking at only direct. What we're seeing now, and you read a lot of thought pieces in the industry, is, well, programmatic could be a great lead gen for direct, and then direct has become programmatic with a lot of PMPs and programmatic guaranteed. And sometimes maybe you should shift an advertiser from direct because you're getting huge volumes, low CPMs, into more premium programmatic. So it is blending a lot. And if you, no matter if you're on the programmatic or direct side, talk to an advertiser and you only have the complete picture of what that advertiser spend in programmatic, you're not gonna be in the best situation in sort of taking that conversation to them spending more with you as a company.
Got it. Got it. Can you customize the data? I mean, in other words, again, the other part that I always struggle with, I get the data sources, but then I need to manipulate that in some particular way and so forth. Do you have some capabilities in that range? And if you don't mind, can you, put up the interface?
Yeah.
Just to like to see it,
Yeah. So, I mean, this is what I would say a power user like Rob Beeler would be greeted with. So the platform is structured in a number of modules. Each module specialized in a particular use case. And different users might have access to fewer or more apps, the same way as they might have access to only a part of the data or all the data. And these are all built around particular use cases. The question you're asking now is around the data management, which is, I would say, one of the few real under the hood features that we've fully exposed to the users, because of just having done this many years, realizing that that's a extremely important capability. But as you might expect, there's a way to look at your integrations. There's a dashboard builder. There's a way to get all your raw data out to Excel. We sneak peeked the real inside baseball type of application where you can, in a very chaotic way, find the needles in the haystack because of the way that it presents data. I'll also later go into this advertisers, which is a way to pretty much with one click get all this data you have underneath put into graphic PowerPoint report and have it sent out either automatically or with a note to the client. But quickly looking at this data management piece, and this is something that you probably only want to give access to your core users, as you here have the capability of changing definitions of what metrics means across the entire data set. You decide it here and then it propagates to everywhere. No need to ever go into a particular report and apply a filter, which you then need to reapply a second time. And if we, for example, go into DFP, you will see that there are a lot of metrics. In this case, we're maybe not running very much video. There's no point in showcasing it. Here's where you create your calculated metrics. If you want to do a gross net rev share metric, you decide it here, and then it's available for everyone without the risk of them making the wrong definition or not understanding how they should do it.
Right, right.
And a final very powerful concept here, and I think everyone working with DFP knows the challenge that you have your ad units. It's a very powerful concept, but it's also very hard to grasp because ad units can mean a site, a section, a page, a placement, above, below the fold. It can mean a device type. It can mean pretty much anything. And you as a ad ops professional know intuitively exactly what your different ad units mean, but sales rep or someone in client services or in finance don't. So what you can do here is to translate that for you. And in here, for example, say, well, these first two ad units, Daily Times, Mail on Tuesday, they are news. And we then have two sports sites. And then once you publish this, you can then pull a report and see how is our news category performing against our sports category. This is information that doesn't exist in Google Ad Manager, but you have the ability to add it here.
Right. I get it.
And then you do the same thing for the Rubicon zones, and then you can look at Google Ad Manager and Rubicon across how news and sports is performing. So here you can actually yourself add more data into the system and knowledge that usually only you knows, but everyone needs.
Very cool. I don't know anyone that's watching, if you've got any ideas around this of, to quiz on this particular part, but I definitely know of some areas where, again, I'm downloading stuff out of Google Ad Manager. I'm then having to manipulate it so I can put it in the terms that someone else needs to look at, because they just don't see it. You really shouldn't see the world the same way an ad server does. You should see it the way you want.
And it's a lot of VLOOKUPs or index matches in Excel to get it to that point. Whereas here it just works. And I think that's something we also really try to push ourselves to, is that you shouldn't have to know exactly how to manipulate the data. If you have no opinions, we'll provide opinions for you. If you have a particular very important way of translating your data, you can do it here.
Got it. But there's a really interesting part you just said there about, like, if you need an opinion, like there's a piece of this again of this is just being more than reports, and really, again, kind of those particular insights across that. And again, you're adding in Salesforce into this, right? Google Ad Manager, any of my programmatic partners. I'm able to say, hey, I've got this thing that goes across that, be able to look at that. And then is there an aspect of this related to discovering opportunities or finding potential revenue? Again, I don't want to, if you're an ability to pop something up, cool. If not, talk to me about it. Like, how can this make me more money than just save me money?
Yeah. I mean, we walked through a very important use case here, and we have cases. I received, I think 2 days ago, a trafficker at one of our clients said that this email is really the backbone of my day. This has saved me so many times in identifying a problem before anyone else sees it's a problem, and even solving it before sales come screaming, or the client wants a true up on their invoice, or yield comes screaming saying you're over delivering and wasting inventory. You're able to get this in real time as it happens, when you're the only one in the world knowing that this happens, and you have maybe a few days to address it and recoup a lot of real money to the company. This is not just a slightly better CTR and maybe a slightly happier client. These are real money on financial terms, where more money gets sent on invoices. The other tool we touched upon, this discovery I call the Inside Baseball tool. It's definitely not for the faint-hearted person when it comes to data, but here is where you will, every time you use this tool, you will walk away with a question you didn't know you should ask. Mm-hmm. And I think a way of phrasing it is, one way of asking a question is, fix our fill rate, it's costing us a lot of money. And that's, I would say, a non-constructive question to ask. And you already had 170 things to fix that you knew more about, so it's not going to happen. But if you instead could get back to someone and say, well, could you help me understand why my smartphone traffic on the Roku TV ad unit is having a 3 times larger lower fill rate than everything else? That question to someone else, you've done 90% of the work for them to understand why fill rate is low. They can go in and look at what's the difference between desktop and smartphone on this ad unit. Immediately see, oh shit, we configured this tag wrong, fix it. So this is also a way to not only get shocked of how much data that there is to look at, because here you will be you can always drill down. So for every click you do, you look at a smaller and smaller piece of the data. So we're now in a particular campaign for a particular line item. When it looks like this, then it's really no significant insight. Everything performs the same. But then here, for example, device, you see, okay, well, desktop is having a twice X discrepancy than smartphone. There is a very important difference there. And you would never found this else otherwise, because it's only a small portion of the traffic. So this is really what I said, the needle in the haystack type of application of understanding why is this performing better or worse across. And what you can see here is now we're fairly deep into the haystack, and we here identify that the finance section versus the travel section, you do have almost 100% difference in discrepancies. So just sending this to someone else or yourself, go into DFP, you'll look at how things are configured. It's a revolutionary different type of question to ask someone, even if it's not you fixing the problem, then just saying, could you tell me why Pampers is not performing?
Right. And again,
this all ties back to money. It's not just feel-good metrics. This is real money. And we always try to do everything we can to get to that point of you knowing, is this a $2 problem or a $28,000 problem?
Interesting. A couple of questions have rolled in, but I just want to go off what you just said that, I think is key is often when you sit there and you talk to an IT department or you talk to dev about how the page is actually coded, right? There's a thing of my average viewability is X, as if that's sufficient, right? And what I'm immediately looking at, and what I would immediately do with this is I'd be diving in and looking at this as a section issue. Is it a particular ad unit issue? Is it a device issue? Getting to that point, right? And then looking at that, right? Working with them to solve the bigger issue. But then I'd be looking at my most important campaigns, to your point, the dollars drive the discussion, and go, do I need to, is finance helping me or hurting me here? Is there another section, and start to look at how I could optimize for performance with this level of detail. And again, I think from this interface it's there. And I think again, the kind of email approach. So I don't know if that led to any other ideas. I wanted to go to a couple of questions that came in.
I mean, the only comment would be that anyone saying we have an average viewability of 60%, it's a very lazy way of describing the problem, because that 60% is going to be 92% in one part and 17% in another part. And what if you could take that 17% and bring it up to the high 80s? Suddenly your average is 85.
That's right.
But if you're content and satisfied with having a 60% across, well, good. That's fine, and that might be the correct business decision sometimes. Sometimes it's not.
Yeah, death by averages. Averages have a way of getting you into trouble. So this question comes from someone who's obviously, I think, talked with you before and or used the system, and The question really kind of circles around how to better manage and reward teams in terms of, I guess some of maybe the work that you've done with some of your clients where with this system, you've been able to reward people for finding particular issues and solving that to amount of revenue delivered. How can this tool help me manage my team and again, build KPIs that are around that?
I mean, going back to the email, obviously here we will pull these roles from whatever system has it, but we do have the information of who is working on what campaign or lines or advertisers. But we also have this information, for example. So one conversation that I've seen started is, I mean, AdOps is a wonderful set of people with a very tough set of challenges in sort of realizing someone else's promises. And there are salespeople that are great at selling campaigns that are easy to traffic and easy to deliver. And there are salespeople that will just say yes to everything, and it's going to require 60 hours overtime to make it even get close to delivering. So starting to look at reports in how many notifications do you have per sales rep? How much opportunity costs do you have per salesperson? Not to punish, but to set positive incentives that you can have variable components of how much downstream work is created. In the same way as any ad ops doing their job, but going above and beyond in resolving issues quickly because of their familiarity with tools like this, should of course be rewarded, because it goes straight to the bottom line of the company's profits, even though it historically may not have been part of the KPIs ad ops is evaluated on. This enables a whole new type of conversation in what role should ad ops play in the business, because it's millions of dollars that people just accept that they disappear, and they don't need to disappear. And it's only up to ad ops to sort of save the day in that sense. And of course, there needs to be a conversation about how that should also benefit, either reinvest in the team or just put it out as bonuses. Completely up to every leader, but we have seen multiple such conversations.
There's an interesting. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go finish your thought. There's an interesting thing in my head though.
Adjacent area where we've seen a lot of action is companies using this data, going to their vendor contracts and actually using this kind of granular data as input to contract renegotiations. Rev shares, for example, vendors that cause no trouble, well, you can pay them higher rev shares. If vendors commonly cause higher discrepancies, we've seen trends in what vendors cause lower or higher viewability numbers. Well, of course, you need to talk to them about it and use it to your advantage. They pray that you do not have access to data like this when you sit down and you say, okay, let's do another 12% next year, when it maybe should be 8% rev share. And that's also a lot of money that just goes straight to the profit statement of the company. It's 100% margin.
Interesting. No, I think that's a better point that I was going to make. I'll make mine now in the right order, which I like. Certainly the idea of investing in additional people is something considered a cost. And there's, of course, obviously a cost in hiring someone. But if you're actually kind of trying to actually see and hire someone that is an investment in making more revenue, right? That would be a real turning point. I mean, smart publishers don't think of ad ops as a cost center. They look at it as a revenue generator, protector, and then generator, right? And this is kind of interesting because you can start to see where they'd have kind of the tools to sit there and go and articulate it that way. We made more revenue. I want to get to a couple of questions, Carl, and I want
Sure.
to kind of hit on final thoughts. Someone asked about Nielsen data. Have you worked with a publisher yet with pulling in Nielsen data?
Yeah, several, both Nielsen, ComScore, in getting the demographics data in. It's you saw in the email billable impressions. You typically have different definitions of billable. Sometimes you bill off Nielsen numbers. We'll then make sure that whatever we say is the billable impression, we'll take that into account. Adjacent systems to the Nielsen ComScores would be all the ad verification vendors, IES, Double Verify, Moat. We all have them in here as well. And it's really, you can go as deep as you want and need. Complexity can be beneficial to a certain point, and then you probably want to take a look at why you're doing this. But it's definitely possible and fully supported to bring that data in, include it in your campaign reports or just in your sort of financial reporting.
And then great. And then a point of clarification: if someone has already invested in another solution to kind of pull all their data together, you can work with them. If I haven't already done that, I can work with you and do the full particular piece. Is there? I guess I don't know how necessarily to phrase the question the way that they kind of asked it, but you obviously play nicely with those other solutions in terms of pulling that stuff together and working with that. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, I deeply respect our competition and friends at other companies. Sometimes we compete, sometimes we partner. But if you already, as I said, pulled in all these sources into BigQuery, or it sits in a stack or in an adjuster, we'll just pipe the data from that source and then fire up this platform. Because this is all about what you do with the data. And if you already have it, great. It's just going to be even faster to get to a point where we can start doing and extracting some real value together. I mean, I didn't even show it, but it looks exactly as you would expect. A number of tiles of all the systems we have here. If you have set up 18 systems and it's 3 systems you weren't able to get into that particular platform, we'll set up those 3 connections and then bring the rest in and tie it all together and start working. So it's a very holistic approach to that.
I think it's an interesting thing to say, or people to kind of consider the fact that some other people are using using those other platforms and using you. It says something, right, as a differentiator in terms of, again, where you are and kind of your approach to this. I think that's
and I guess I mean, my philosophy as a business leader is always every day consider, is it time for us to disrupt ourselves? And 5 years ago, we were making all our money on doing data integration, and that was our bread and butter. And it's still a lot of business out there depending on it. But moving forward, that's not what I'm banking on will be a main driver for our company. It is really about what can we do with the data. So we shifted that focus a number of years back and started looking at ourselves as one of all these vendors that are out there capable of collecting all your data into one place. And then if it's us or someone else, okay, then the exciting part starts in doing something with the data.
I like that as a really good final point. I think there are a lot of key things I got out of here, right? About just like, again, just getting the data integration is not enough. This idea, I think, of putting some tools in the hands of people who aren't necessarily data scientists, but are wanting to explore and discover and look at it. And love the phrase of this is setting kind of my day, that setting my day up. It's the backbone of what I do during the course of the day. I'm getting one prompt just to add to the end here, which is you're not just a Swedish company. You do have people obviously in New York, and you yourself are in New York, right? At this
Yeah,
point. So
yeah. I've been here in Brooklyn for the last 5 years. We
great.
founded the company in Sweden a long time ago, and I think you can still see a lot of Swedish DNA in some principles on how we go about doing business, but a vast majority of our business is American. We have a big office here in New York, and we still maintain engineering out of Europe office mainly, but these days it's an American company with a couple of people with funny accents.
Well, I will say, and I don't think everyone's in the position that I've been in the past. The Scandinavian technology marketplace is one to keep an eye on. One of the more innovative areas I've found in terms of solving these issues. There's always a part of like American tech, and then you go and you find out that someone in Scandinavia has already figured that out. So
Yeah,
with that, Carl, I want to say thank you and end this particular part of it. Really enjoyed the run through.
thank you so much, and